gonna teach you the fastest way to increase your credit score that nobody is talking about. This is hands down one of the biggest mistakes that I see everyone make with their credit cards. Everyone's telling you get this credit card, get that credit card, but nobody's telling you exactly how to utilize your credit cards to get credit score increases. I know, it sounds crazy using your credit card to get a credit score increase. How is that even possible, Mike? Well, let me break it down for you. You wanna make sure that you watch this video to the very end because I'm gonna give you a huge credit card application tip. It's the biggest mistake that people make every time they apply for a new credit card, and I wanna make sure that you don't make that mistake ever again. But let me ask you this question. Tell me in the comments, when was the last time that you actually asked for a credit limit increase on your credit card? It doesn't matter if it's a crappy credit card or if it's a really good credit card. When was the last time that you actually asked for a credit limit increase? Drop it in the comment section, let me know, because I wanna know how many people truly don't know that this is a powerful move with your credit score. Rule number one in the credit card game, you need to, and I mean you need to continuously request a credit limit increase on any credit card you have at least once every 6 months or once a year, because the goal is to raise those credit limits as high as we possibly can, as high as the bank will let you get. Now, people always come into the comments and say, why do I need a $10,000 or $20,000 credit limit? I'm not trying to spend all that money. No, stop. I don't want you to spend $10,000 or $20,000. That's not the purpose here. I want you to understand that you don't need to go buy TVs and Jordans and luxury goods because you want a high credit score or you feel that you need to use that credit limit. No, the majority of people that are over the 800 credit score are people that have high limit credit cards and they only use what they need. They're literally using their credit cards for every single purchase instead of a debit card. You have to pay your car insurance, right? You can pay that with a credit card. You have to buy groceries, you pay that with a credit card. You have to pay your cell phone bill, your utilities, pay it with a credit card, but responsibly, only if you know you have the money in the bank to pay it off immediately, because the secret to the sauce is never carrying a balance with the bank, and the bank will never deny you a credit limit increase as long as you stick to that recipe. I want to give a special shout out to all my beasters out there that signed up for Dispute Beast and are working hard to fix their credit using the most advanced DIY credit repair software ever created that anyone can use. If you need to fix your credit, link is gonna be in the description. We'll use Capital One as an example. A lot of people love to hate on Capital One. They say, oh, they're crappy, they're stingy, they don't want to give credit limit increases. Well, that's because you're not using your credit card properly. You have to understand something. If you're consistently carrying a balance on your credit cards, why would the bank want to give you more money? You are deemed a high risk. Understand this. Anytime that you carry large balances for far too long on your credit reports, the credit card company can see that. They have access to your credit reports once you're a client of theirs. So they can see when your credit score drops because you're carrying balances and how long it's taking you to pay them off. And then you go ask for a credit limit increase. They're like, nah, fam, we don't want to give you any more money. You're looking pretty bad over there. You got some balances. Nah, denied. So before you ever apply for any credit limit increase, the general rule is to not have a balance reporting on your credit reports or on the credit card that you're going to ask for a credit limit increases. I mean, it's kind of obvious. We got to use our head here. You don't want to ask the bank for more money when you already owe them money. Now, people are going to come into the comments and say, oh, but I asked for a credit limit increase and they gave it to me. It really depends on the relationship. So everyone's going to be different, but I want to teach you to never get denied no matter what. So if you stick to this recipe, it's going to work. It's worked for thousands of my clients. The number one reason why people with Capital One credit cards get denied for credit limit increases is because Capital One is a subprime lender. It's the largest subprime lender in the United States. So when you're carrying a balance, that sends off a red flag in their systems and they don't like it. So then you go apply for a credit limit increase and they're like, nope, denied. Or you're already carrying a balance and you ask for the credit limit increase. Again, let's use our noggin here because they're not going to give you more money when you owe them money. So you have to understand, we need to make sure that our utilization is as low as possible, always below 9% utilization. Now, utilization is not, now I'm going to repeat, not the way that you're using your credit card. It's the balances that report from only your credit cards. And that's what confuses people because you're like, well, I'm using my credit card. Yeah, but you're not paying it off. So it's raising your utilization and raising your risk as an actual credit card holder. And then now the credit card company doesn't want to give you any money. So two major things I want you to learn. One, do not have any late payments on your credit card account that you're going to request a credit limit increase in the most recent 24 months. months. That's very important to understand. The most recent 24 months is 2 years. And really, you don't want anything in the most recent 48 months. So in the most recent 4 years, it could be no late payments. If there are, you need to work to remove those late payments, completely delete the late payments, or reverse them to be on time before you apply for a credit limit increase. Because on-time payment history accounts for 35% of your credit score. It's one of the biggest factors that every lender looks at. They want to know if you are in fact paying on time. And remember, utilization is the next factor. This is the second biggest reason why you'll get denied for a credit limit increase. If you are carrying a balance that is way too high, or you've been carrying balances for far too long, always keep your utilization below 9%. But if you want to increase your chances of getting approved for a credit limit increase, you need to make sure that it's at least zero balance, zero utilization. And people can argue all they want on the internet with me about, oh, it's bad to carry a zero balance. There's not one bank on this earth that's gonna say, oh my God, no, don't give him any more money. He doesn't have any balances. Now, the next step in this is to understand what banks do not do a hard inquiry and what banks do a soft inquiry. Now, a hard inquiry is when they check your credit, they do a hard inquiry, and it affects your credit score. It can drop your credit score 3 to 6 points at max. Don't come into the comments trying to argue with me about that either. This is directly from FICO. I'm not talking about your crappy Credit Karma score either. Last part's the most important. There is a massive list of credit card companies that will give you a credit limit increase on your credit cards whenever you request them through the app. Never ever request a credit limit increase by calling the credit card company, because that will in fact give you a hard inquiry, and we don't want that. Now, here is the list of all of the banks that will give you a credit limit increase inside of their app with no hard inquiry. First up, of course, we have Capital One. Next up is going to be Chase Bank. Next up, American Express. Now, American Express will give you 3 times the credit limit increase on your credit limit increase request if you request it as such. That's another insider right there. Now, Citibank, Discover Bank, the Apple credit card, any Goldman Sachs credit card, you can do this inside of their app. So that includes the GM credit card. All of the Synchrony Bank credit cards, go into your app and you just request it inside of there, and guess what? You can get a credit limit increase as long as you follow the recipe that I gave you, and there's no hard inquiry. I know for a fact personally, because I've used every single one of these banks. I'm bringing you real data points, and I've used the app, and I've got credit limit increases with all of them. We want to raise those credit limit increases as much as we possibly can every year, because let's say, for instance, you have a $5,000 credit card limit, and then they give you another $5,000. Now you've pushed your limit to the very tippity top of $10,000 with that credit card, and that's going to get you some type of credit score increase on your credit profile. Everyone's going to be different, but if the moment you add every $5,000 that you add, that's going to help your credit profile, because guess what? Now you're adding to your overall available credit limit on your credit cards, which is going to lower your utilization if you are carrying balances. And if you ever need to have some type of emergency, guess what? It's not going to hurt your credit score as much. If you have a $500 credit limit and then you got to go get something that's $400 and you got to carry that balance for a few months, that's going to destroy your credit score. Because remember, the higher the balances that you carry, the more your credit score drops. Make sure that you change your bell notification from mute to notified so you never miss any of our new content that we drop or when I go live, because you just never know when I'm going to pop up and bring you some more valuable information for free. So whenever you request a credit limit increase, as I said earlier, American Express will give you 3 times of your current credit limit. So if you have a $2,000 credit limit, then you want to ask for a $6,000 credit limit. But don't just ask for $6,000 and say, hey, I was wondering if I could get an $8,000 credit limit. And then guess what? They may give you the $8,000, or they'll just give you another $6,000, because they're going to give you 3 times of whatever you requested with American Express. Do it inside of the little chat bot. That's where you want to do it. Same thing with the Apple credit card. Apple credit card is a secret hidden gem that they will in fact increase your credit limit every 6 months. Some people, they only do it once a year, but guess what? That's still once a year, and that's very helpful. But you want to ask for more than what you actually want. So if you want to get a $4,000 credit limit increase, then ask for $8,000. I know that sounds crazy, but what's the worst thing that can happen? They say no, and the next time you come back, you can ask for a lower amount. So if you ask for $8,000, then maybe this time I'll just ask for $6,000. Do you get what I'm saying here? And this also works for business credit cards. So all of those banks that I named, if they have any business credit cards, this will work with them. This works great with American Express business credit cards and Chase Bank credit cards also. I created a secret tactic with all of my new clients when I used to do credit repair. I used to tell them, listen, moving forward, I want you to create a winning streak. I want you to learn how to make sure to never carry a balance for 6 months consecutively. Use your credit card as much as you can and then pay it off in full right before the statement closing date hits. And then once the statement closing date hits, stop using your credit card for up to 7 days so it reports a zero balance. Do this for 6 months, 8 months, all the way up to 12 months. This shows the bank that you are a responsible borrower, and I would say 9 out of the 10 times they'll automatically give you a credit limit increase without you even having to ask for it. Now here's a crazy statistic that a lot of people do not know. Less than 3% of Americans do not carry balances on their credit cards. So if that's you out there, make sure to give yourself a round of applause. Congratulations, you are in the top 3%. You're not paying any interest, you're not carrying any balances, and you're keeping your score at the highest peak possible, because that's exactly what the banks want to see. They want to see consistency. See what I taught you with the winning streak? Consistency. And your credit score will squeeze out every available point out of your credit score when you're doing it consistently. When you're erratic and you're like, okay, I carried a balance and I paid it off, I carried a balance, paid it off. That's not consistent. You want a consistent winning streak. And the biggest thing that people don't understand, when you have low limit credit cards on your credit profile and you don't use the credit card, why would the bank want to increase those credit limits? Even if they're crappy credit cards, use them and pay them off in full, and then keep using them. Keep doing this as much as you possibly can to get them to raise the credit limits, even on the crappy credit cards. Because understand, if you don't use a card, guess what? They're gonna close it usually after 3 months of no usage. The only ones that don't usually close them are like the Credit Ones and the First Premier, because they're charging you a monthly fee every single month. Now, there are credit cards out there with Credit One that, oh, they don't have any annual fees or monthly fees. Yeah, I get it. But the ones that do, they won't close them, because guess what? They're charging you a fee and you're paying it. So that's why they won't close it. But if you have a credit card with a larger bank and you don't use the credit card for at least up to 3 months, they will close the credit card. Now, here is the biggest tip that a lot of people don't talk about with credit card applications. Stop putting obscene amounts of income on your credit applications thinking that, oh, well, this is gonna get me a higher credit limit. No, it doesn't. Your credit limits that are on your credit cards when you apply for a credit card are based on what's on your credit profile. Putting a larger limit on your credit card application doesn't help you get more money. And this is why it's also very, very important that you continue to raise those credit limits on your credit cards. So when you go after a new credit card, now they're gonna see, okay, he's got a $5,000, $10,000, $10,000, another $15,000. Okay, so we feel comfortable giving him another $8,000 to $15,000 credit card. And when you add that new credit card to your credit profile, you'll get an instantaneous boost to your credit score because you just added a $10,000 or $15,000 credit card to your overall available credit limits. So as an example, this is gonna be my last tip. If you're actually someone that makes over $100,000, let's say hypothetically you make $120,000 a year, but you always put that on your credit application. I'm not telling you to lie, but understand it's not necessary. So let's say instead you put $65,000 or $75,000. You get approved, you get the credit limit that's decent out there, or maybe you didn't because again, your limits are too low on your credit profile. Because remember, it's always about the credit profile. So if you put $65,000 or $75,000, then every time that you reapply for a credit limit increase, it's going to ask you what is your income. So if you go from $75,000, you say, okay, well now I make $80,000 or I make $85,000. The bank can see that your actual income is increasing. If you put it at the max, you have no room for growth. Because guess what? If they ask you for proof of your income and then you're like, oh yeah, I do make this. But if they ask you for proof of income, you got $75,000 and say, well, why didn't you put the full amount? Because I didn't feel like it. You're technically not lying. You're just choosing a different alternative because remember, every time that you reapply for a credit limit increase, you're increasing the amount that's on that application and you're showing that your income is actually increasing. So it incentivizes the bank to give you more money. This is my last and final tip. I promise. I know I don't want this to be too long of a video. You need to focus on getting your credit card balances down as much as you possibly can. If you are one of those people, focus on that before you ever request a credit limit increase. Because whenever we go through tough economic times, the number one thing that banks are going to do is reduce their risk. And if you're carrying a balance for far too long, they will lower that limit, and it's gonna hurt your credit score even more because now that credit card is completely maxed out. And then let's say, for instance, you do pay off the credit card that you've been carrying a limit for far too long. The credit card company may in fact close your credit card because now you have reduced the risk, and they're like, yo, let's get out of here before this guy like really does something else and he puts more on there and then he can't pay it off. So you have to understand what you're up against with credit cards, and especially in tough economic times. When we're doing great with the economy, no bank flinches at how much money they're gonna give you or how many balances you're carrying. But at the end of the day, if you're carrying balances for far too long, it's showing that on your credit reports and your credit scores, and the bank will in fact reduce their risk by lowering the limits or possibly even closing a credit card before it's done being paid off. So tread lightly and understand what you're getting yourself into.